What's happening, Pod Squad? Welcome in to Strive It Like It's Hot. Every single one of you listening, we appreciate. Matt appreciates, and I appreciate. I've been in business now in the pavement business for 7 years. So I'm going to share with you 7 mistakes that I've made over these 7 years, because I think so much of what we put out is designed to. Obviously, we're trying to attract eyeballs and attention, of course, but legitimately, we're giving away information. I talk about what has worked for me over these 7 years all the time, so how you can apply that in your business. But like most, sometimes you get the illusion of someone that everything is all roses and everything's great, but it's not always the case. So my goal here in sharing with you the 7 biggest mistakes I've made over the years, because it's been more than 7, is so that you can hear them and go, maybe I'm about to make that mistake, or maybe I'm making that mistake now. That's the goal. So here's mistake number 1. Be slow to hire, quick to fire. That was first taught to me probably 3 years ago. So I really have had no excuse in the last 3 years especially. But even when I was taught this idea that an employer should be slow to hire, which we can do, basically means that you're going to be selective and go through a rigorous recruiting process, right? Make sure you get good people, and quick to fire, which does not mean that you just fire everyone the moment they make a mistake. Quick to fire means that you have a standard and a culture that prioritizes people who are bought in to the system and they're willing to follow the process. And if they go against the values of the company and they clearly aren't going to follow the process, you get rid of them. And it is like I'm going through this. This is my business. Like, we need to improve the culture at Laser Pavement. Always we have to, but we really need to make sure that we are attracting people and going through that rigorous process so that we don't have to fire people. And when we do see people making mistakes, we got to quickly get them course corrected as fast as possible, with the idea that we don't retain people for longer than we need to. Okay, so here's the mistake that I have consistently made over the years, literally year over year, and still struggle with to this day. And thankfully now, as we've had, chain of command brought down and decentralized command, I don't have to make the decisions of who we're going to fire or even hire. But I've consistently made this mistake of like hanging on to people for just too long, even though all the signs are there. Something my mentor, Brian, has said this all the time. He's like, man, I'd rather be the guy that gave too many chances than not enough. And I was like, that's me. Like 100% that's me. And I think that's noble and that's good, but it's also could get you in a lot of trouble, because if you have one employee or 2 or 10, it doesn't matter how many you have, but if you have one employee in the group that you just know that they're not going to make it long term. You know that you're going to have issues with them. You know that when you send them to a job site that you're just waiting to hear what's going to go wrong. Oh, this person's going to phone me again, right? And you have all of these things that build up. And sometimes we just tell ourselves, and for me, the mistake I've been making consistently over the years is like, but they can do it. Like, I believe in them. And I'm telling you, it's painful when you have more belief in an employee than they do in themselves. It just sucks. It's awful. I've even said that to someone. We had an employee who was like, just had no self-confidence, man. And I remember telling him, he was in my office, he was in tears. And I told him, I hate knowing that I believe in you more than you believe in yourself. That stinks. So you can get yourself in a lot of trouble. And that's one of the mistakes I was making, because you will retain people longer than you need to. And ultimately, what often happens, this is what happens in my case, you'd often get to the point where something happens that kind of mentally pushes you over the edge, and you're like, okay, I now have to make the decision. I have to get rid of this person. I have to remove them from the company. And when you do it, it's painful, it sucks, it's awful, but you also, like, a short period of time later, look back on it and go, I probably should have done that sooner. And honestly, I'm going to tell you two things that might sound like they're opposite, just to wrap this point up. I believe that number one, anytime someone is fired from the company, anytime you have to fire an employee, even if they're like a crazy lunatic loco, there's something you could have done better. Always. Always, always, always. To me, that's what makes firing painful. I do believe in extreme ownership. I do believe that if we had to fire someone, there's something that could have been done differently along their employee progression, along the day, from their start day to the end, that we could have just done something different to got a different outcome. I'm convinced of it. But the same point, and the thing that might sound like the opposite, is that it's entirely okay to remove someone who is not performing well. These things are not binary. Humans are not like good employee, bad employee. I trained them well, I didn't train them well. Everything is on a spectrum, as they say. And so both of them can be true. But if you are sitting there today struggling with an employee who you're like, I just know there's going to be problems, right? Here's my rule of thumb. If they gave you their notice that they were quitting and you either A, feel a small sense of joy, or B, do not feel the urge to fight and keep them, then that's probably a pretty good indication that it's you need to get rid of them. And so when I look back on the people that I've had to let go in the company over the years, both are true. I could have done something better, but I'm at peace with it. I probably should have done it sooner. So slow to hire, quick to fire. If you're trying to grow and scale right now, so if you're at multiple employees, you're trying to get to that $1 million mark, maybe you're at $1 million. Slow to hire, quick to fire, man. If you don't have that in place, it's going to be really hard to scale your business. Mistake number 2. When you're really small, you can sell your way out of problems. And that's why I love small companies. Dude, if you're just getting started and you're like, under 100K or whatever, 100K revenue, and you're just like upset because like things just don't seem to be going well, or like you got bills to pay or whatever, dude, just go sell. Like it sounds kind of brutal, but if you're nowhere near the $1 million revenue mark, you just have a sales problem, unless you live in like a town of 82 people, and then probably it's a market problem. But like, that's not the case for 95, 98% of businesses. I don't know what the number is. The overwhelming majority, for you listener, the problem is not your market. You just need to sell. You just need to sell. The mistake that I made, though, was that when we started to grow and scale and we got into serious 6 figures and then 7 figures in revenue, the mistake that I made is I carried that same mindset of, well, we could just sell our way out of the problem. That's how I grew the company so quick. Dude, I was just selling stuff. If you do not supplement a sales-driven culture with process, with a good financial plan, that could be a budget, that could be a forecast, that could be having accurate management reports. If you don't have an accurate balance sheet, P&L, those are all things that I struggled with for years. And not because I wasn't interested in them. I was just too busy selling and hiring and trying to write the procedures. And, I didn't have the resource and the capital to go hire a manager for 120 grand a year. So I had to make one, right? I promoted one, and I was putting time and effort into training that person. And when you're doing that, if you carry the same sales mentality of like, dude, I need money, I'll just go sell some jobs. That is an awesome strategy when you're just getting started. But unfortunately, when I carried that to a growing business, it pushed my company to the brink twice. And I've talked about them before on this show. I don't know where. You have to go find them. One time, we were literally 13 minutes away from shutting the company down. And that was because I thought, well, we could just sell our way out of the problem. And it comes to a point where, nope, the company grows big enough, you can't sell your way out of a problem. Second time was very, very similar. I had a certified professional accountant tell me, we had all the spreadsheets open. We had like the reports, we had the cash register, we had everything projected over the next 3 to 6 months. And I had a financial professional tell me like, I don't think you're going to be around in 2 to 3 months. And I don't really see a way for you to be able to like supplement the income and thereby the cash quickly enough to overcome this. So unless you know something I don't, I think you should probably prepare to get rid of the company. An accountant told me that. Like when an accountant tells you, I looked at the numbers and you have 2 to 3 months, pretty freaky. And so it was the same thing. Like I had carried this sales first mentality, which is a good mentality. Like sales is a gas, man. If your company should exist to sell stuff. Don't let any of those operations or finance people tell you otherwise. You need to grow the thing, and man, that's with sales. But you need the structure underneath it. You can't just sell your way out of problems. So hopefully that resonates with you. Number 3. Oh gosh. The last 4 weeks I've been on this just ridiculous process kick. We just put out, when did that episode come out about process? Go look 2 episodes ago, right? Or 1 episode ago, or 3 episodes ago. I don't know. Matt's pulling the numbers. Recently, I did a solo podcast. He's checking the numbers. Thank you. 2 weeks ago from today. So whenever this comes out, probably a month ago, whatever. I've been on a tear with process, okay? Because I found holes and gaps in our company's growth. So if I wanted, the way we're doing things now at Laser Pavement is working okay, but in order to get to where we're trying to go, it's not going to work. How many times have you heard me say that? The way it works today is not the way it's going to work tomorrow. 17 million times at least, bro. So the mistake that I've made over the years was I didn't document the process as I was doing it. I didn't write down the procedures. Instead, kind of what I've done is I grew the company very quickly, and then I would batch produce documents and procedures and SOPs and training videos and be like, I need to do this. And then I'd go, they're all there. And that was good until you start to grow, and then I'd have to do it again. I would kind of batch produce these procedures or get someone else to help. And what I've learned, especially over the last 4 to 8 weeks, is why are we not doing this constantly? Why are we batching these procedures? Why are we doing stuff, waiting until it clearly isn't going to work well, and then go, we should make a procedure for this. And then that's the wrong way of doing it. If you can stomach the time investment and the capital investment, if you have to hire people to write the procedures and the processes as you're doing them, man, I would have made my life so much easier. I would have avoided all those stressful moments, because I think this is the Pareto principle, truthfully, like the 80-20 rule. So 80% of your results come from 20% of the actions. That 20% of action of documenting things as we're going would have solved 80% of the problems. But instead it was let's do 0% until we absolutely need it. And then we'll do all of it. And that's just not a fun way to do business, man. So if you're listening to this, I know if you're at $250,000 and you're hiring your first couple people, and it's probably the last thing on your mind. Look, I was there, right? So I know it's the last thing on your mind is I think I'm going to take the morning and document our process on how we create an invoice. That's the last thing you want to do. But man, if you could start building that as you go, even just in little chunks, block it into your calendar, man, just for even once a week, a little bit of time to document whatever it is you're doing. In a couple minutes, I'll tell you about how we actually hacked that with AI and how you can do that. All right. That's the third mistake I made. Number 4, it's painful because some of these, as I'm reading them, I wrote them down, right? So I wouldn't forget them. I'm reading them. And as soon as I read them, my brain's yeah, you're still struggling with that, dude. Potentially still making the mistake. My 4th mistake I've made out of the last 7 years is the eternal struggle of trying to balance what I believe as the owner and the vision that I have and the values that I want to create and the culture I want to create in the company versus giving autonomy to your people. This one is, it's brutal. So when a pavement company or any company is very small, 1, 2, 3, 4 people, it's dude, the company is the owner. The owner is the company. They are all tied together. There's no separation. You could have a full-time employee. It doesn't matter. If that owner disappeared, the company's over. And the larger the company gets, think of really large companies now. We associate the company with the person, right? SpaceX and Tesla is Elon. Amazon is Bezos. Acquisition.com is Hormozy. We just associate the people with the company because they're the face of the company. So those people have to, and this is the struggle and kind of the mistake I've been making is I have to retain the what it means and the level of authority and the idea that I'm the owner and that I'm creating the vision and the path of where this specific pavement company is trying to go. But I also have to make sure that I hire people who are already skilled. So I'm hiring specialists now who want a measure of autonomy, who want to use their experience and their ideas and implement them into the company. But it all has to work together. And that's hard. Like, I'm realizing now, as I say it, so many of these mistakes I'm making are things that exist on a spectrum. So like on one hand, you could be like, this is the way we're doing it. There is no wiggle room at all. Like, we have to do it this way. And then on the other side of that spectrum is somebody who's like, dude, I just want to hire great people and let them dictate. Like, you decide everything. Like, you're the smart person. I'm just the owner. You decide, right? There's companies that exist on that spectrum. And I've typically gone to this side, where the side of like, I trust you. You make the decision. So much so that like I've my general manager or my operations manager have made decisions, and they're a little bit not freaked out, but they're like, dude, I didn't really consult with you before I made this decision. I'll never forget when my GM did that the first time. He terminated someone from the company without really checking with me. It was one of our technicians, a senior technician, no less. And he's like, dude, I think I made a huge mistake. And I said, what? And he's like, I didn't tell you that I was removing that person. And I laughed, and I was like, to be clear, you're not saying that removing the person was a mistake. We both agreed that that person definitely needed to be removed from the company. It was the fact that he didn't really consult with me. And me being on this side of the spectrum was like, that's not a mistake. Like, it's your department. It's literally under your purview just because I'm the owner, right? Like, if a middle manager at Amazon gets fired, like, nobody goes to Bezos and goes like, I didn't tell you that I was firing Jeff, from QC at this facility. But Bezos doesn't care. So I generally skew to that side of the spectrum. But the mistake that I've made is I think I've gone too far this way. So in other words, I have an internal fear. Man, we're really getting into it today, man. I have an internal fear. So I have an internal fear. Fear might be a strong word, but my concern is that if I pull back from this side and I take away some of that autonomy, and I say to management in particular in our company, or maybe it's a foreman for you or a supervisor, whatever, maybe you pull them back and you're like, hey, I see why you're doing it this way, but this is the way that the company's trying to do it. This is what I, want to see in the company. My concern is that if I pull back on that and I drift that direction, that people will go, you hired me to do this. I don't want to do it that way. I want to do it this way. Leave me be, right? And the funny thing is, I say it out loud, no one's ever even said that to me. Probably because I still exist too far over here. But even the times where I have gone more to the center where I probably need to be, no one's ever freaked out. No one's ever said anything. So I think the mistake that I've made is, especially like in 2023, that was a pivotal year for our company. I really was hands off, and dude, I have financial results in the company to tell you that I was too hands off because it didn't work. That was one of the years where the CPA told me, I give you like 2 to 3 months. Like, whoa, that was very eye opening. So thankfully we solved that problem because I'm ruthlessly dedicated to solving problems. Anyways, that's 4. Here's the 5th mistake I've made. 5 of 7. It's funny because the mistake I've made is I've been too slow to implement. And the irony is, I think I'm faster than most. Like, I do think I implement things faster than most, but I still don't think it's been fast enough. I think there's been many times where I knew something needed to change in the company. Like, man, we really should be doing this. And I'll tell you what, it's funny. Whether it's on the Pavement Growth Lab on Skool, there's a little plug. Go check out the Pavement Growth Lab. Details in the description of this podcast or video below, or working with people one-on-one. Another plug, reach out to me if you want help. It's amazing how many times people say to me, like, I know I should be doing that. Or some variant of that, like, this is the way it should be. I should get this software. I should stop doing my estimates on a spreadsheet. I should, we say that all the time. And it's like, well, why haven't you? Then why are you still doing it? Well, it's going to be a lot of work. Well, I don't know where to start. Well, and so I truly believe that on that spectrum of like how fast do you execute ideas. Yeah, you could be too fast for sure. You could just be reckless. But like our size of company, I think most companies, man, that are like, if you're like not at 10 million in revenue, just go do things. Like whatever. What's the chances you're going to decide something that's going to like mess up the entire company? And that truthfully is how I measure today, like how fast should we implement this? So here's the example. This was 2 weeks ago. I use AI every day, every single day. I've been on ChatGPT Premium for like, I don't even know, 2 years. I have multiple projects in there. I have very advanced threads. I've learned how to input correctly. I know how to get the outputs that I want. I've worked with the model in my account, and I can just produce so much so quickly with like so much accuracy. It's just incredible, right? So I would talk about this to people in the company like, dude, I use AI every day, right? I even told my ops manager once, like, if you saw how much info I have in my ChatGPT, and I kind of like gave him a quick overview on the screen. I was like, dude, if you actually knew how much I use this, you'd be terrified. Like, you think the robots are running the company. And the reason for that is I learned very quickly that it just stinking works. And so the realization I had about 3-ish weeks ago was like, this is what I do. I sit there and I think about stuff when I'm not in chaos mode. This week has been chaos mode. But when I'm not in chaos mode, I sit there and I think, how can I take something that's working for me and apply it across the company as a whole? So I thought about that with AI. And I got annoyed. I got very annoyed. Not at people, not at myself, I got an annoyed feeling. I use AI every day. It helps me do incredible things. I can go so quickly. It's how I can run the podcast in the media company and a multi-million-dollar pavement company and be involved in, not sell my soul to work. And I have a family and I'm very involved in other things. Like AI is a big part of that. So I asked myself, well, if it's working for me, but people in my company aren't taking advantage of it, A, why not? B, how much efficiency are we losing by them not doing it? And C, how do I get them on board with this? So full disclosure, we hire old people now, right? So our ops manager's 50, our GM's 60. So these people by just, if you want to assume by, demographic, they're not going to be the quickest to adopt, something like AI generally. So I was like, well, how do I solve this? And so basically it wasn't like not even a few days later where I booked time in my calendar, closed the door, and I sat there and I said, I'm going to figure out how I can get my sales team, my operations manager, my general manager, my executive assistant. Like I'm going to get all these people on AI. How hard could it be? I'm going to figure out what platform to use. I'm going to pay the money for like a business plan, which I presumed there was business plans. Turns out there is. And I'm going to figure out and build like a system where they can use AI, and specifically a chat-based AI, every single day to do their jobs quicker. And so I sat down. It took me about 3 hours. I did a ton of research. And I decided, you know what? There's basically only a few handful of like major AIs out there. I believe in Elon Musk more than I do Sam Altman. So I'm going to go get Grok Premium. So I did. Let the company know, hey, you're going to get an email to join Grok, Super Grok, it's called, business plan. I paid for the licenses. Sign up. So I did it. Matt, guess what happened when I signed up for Grok? It sucked. It's terrible. So much so, like it took me more time because then I started researching like why everyone says Grok is like the best and Elon knows what he's doing, right? So how come I can't get it to work? And no matter what I do, guys, I don't know. Maybe I'm just Grok. I don't speak Grok. I could never get Grok to do what ChatGPT was doing for me. So I scrapped it. Literally, I think it was yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. I told the company, hey, we paid for a monthly license. I hope you didn't get too far and deep into the Grok thing because I'm going to change it. We're all going to go to ChatGPT. And it's that speed of how fast you can implement things and how fast can you pivot. That's what really makes a company. Because in the past, I would have sat there and been like, I probably should get everyone on AI. Why am I doing that? Well, which one should I get? And then I'd look at it and be like, well, what if they don't use it? Then I'm spending $150 a month for the team that they're not using. And you just go down this rabbit hole. Okay, I did it. Grok sucked. It's not going to work. I figured it out in like a week that I'm like, yeah, this is just not for us. So I wasted $150. Oh, well, do things quicker. Don't be slow to implement things because the cost of implementing a failed decision is probably nowhere near as big as catastrophic as you think it is. And like time and time again, I've seen this to be true. The people who move fast, by the time you figured out the one thing, so all that thing that you're saying on the Pavement Growth Lab, or my people that I'm working with one-on-one, or like you listening out there, if you're like, I should be doing this thing. I should hire that salesperson. I should write out a process for this. I should, improve this software. Yeah. Guess what? By the time you finally decide to do it and succeed at it, your competitor has tried 3 other things and already figured it out 6 months before. They're miles ahead of you. They're 6 months ahead of you because they implemented quicker. So I now implement fast, and it stresses people out in the company, but it's good. It's part of the culture. Innovation is one of our core values. Number 6, Matt, how am I for time? I'm going way too long. Wrap it up. All right. That's like, okay, I'm going to wrap it up. 6th mistake I've made over the years, 6 of 7. This one's painful. This is the one I'm still screw up constantly. It's so hard, man. Solving people's problems and not letting them solve them on their own. So I'm going to speak to the people here. When you first hire someone to like manage your crew, right? For the first time. So like, let's say you have like a couple techs, then you get a senior tech. You make the position in the company and you tell that senior tech, you are now responsible for training future techs. And that makes people feel great and they get more money and they're probably going to struggle with it and, whatever. And then you get some techs and then senior techs, and then you're like, okay, now we need like a foreman. We need a supervisor. So then you get a supervisor. And now you have like this chain of command starting to build, right? Then you need someone you used to run the operations. And now you're like, man, I really just need to focus on sales. So I need someone to run the operations. Well, now you get an operations manager. That process that I described creates a hierarchy of, laborers, potentially technicians, senior people, supervisors, foremen, ops manager, whatever your structure is, doesn't matter. The point is you're building the hierarchy, right? And depending on your personality, if you're a super nice, cool guy like me, just joking, but I don't know, I'm generally an agreeable person, right? If I take assessments, they all say the same thing. I'm more agreeable than most. So I'm the nice guy. Well, guess what happens when people have problems, a technician, and they know that the owner of the company is a nice guy? Well, they're just going to go ask the nice guy. And it could be like the least harmless thing in the world. It could be like, hey, I was wondering if I could go build a shelf in the shop. Okay, this is basically what happened a couple months ago. I'm wondering if, what do you think about me building a thing in the shop? And there's 2 thoughts that pop in my head immediately. Number 1, I'm not the right person that you should be talking to. Yes, I'm the owner of the company, but I don't care where the shelves go. You're you're a technician. You should care. Your foreman should care, and your operations manager should care. Like beyond that, like you're going past them to go to me. Oh, dude, like sure, I think it's a great idea. And I probably said something like that. Honestly, I probably said like, yeah, that makes total sense to me. Yeah, go talk to your ops manager. That's probably what I said. What I've learned is, when you say that, even when you're like, say the right thing, if you if you enable people to do it by not making them feel uncomfortable that they're talking to the wrong person, you're kind of solving people's problems. So in an extreme example, there are some of you out there who'd be like, oh, I'll just cut the legs out of my, ops manager indirectly. Yeah, absolutely. You can go build the shelf. Sure. And then they're going to start building it. And then the ops manager is going to be like, you're working overtime today? Like, what are you even doing here? Oh, I'm building a shelf. Why are you building a shelf? Oh, the owner over there, Cam, he said like, yeah, it's a great idea. And then the ops manager looks like an idiot because now you have the owner who's like, yeah, give her. And then you got the guy down here who's like, well, I really want to do it. Plus I'll get overtime. And then you got your guy in the middle manager, who's like got the legs cut out from him. Not good, right? He feels like an idiot. And then a good operations manager would go to the owner at that point or the next person in the command and say like, hey, don't ever do that again. So over the years, I have been that guy, the owner that people felt comfortable talking to. When I brought in an experienced operations manager and he started to affect change in the company and really dial in the processes that we need, it made people uncomfortable and they didn't like it. So guess what they did? They went to the person who made them feel comfortable. Not only was I the nice guy, but up until the hiring of the operations manager, I was also the person that they kind of like knew and reported to. Kind of. There was somebody in the middle. But the point is, like, they were more close to me the smaller the company was. Now the company's growing. Now there's an ops manager. Now there's other people in the middle in between the owner and the people who are in the field working. And that just creates, that change makes people uncomfortable. And they're like, well, in the old days, I'm being 100% real with you. I've had people, while they're being terminated, say, I liked it better before you had him, or I liked it better when we did it this way. I think the company's going astray. And if you start to believe that while you're trying to change the company to grow and scale, but you subconsciously think that like you're doubting yourself, you will solve people's problems for them. And it undermines the entire operation of growing the company. You can't do it. You have to be comfortable with the idea of making others uncomfortable when they circumvent the hierarchy, which sounds brutal, but like it's true. Like I've seen this time and time again in my company. So what I need to do now is when somebody comes in with like a concern, even if it's about their direct manager, like the first thing that comes out of my mouth is like, do you want me to go down with you and set up a time with your manager to talk about this? Because I can't really help you. And it's painful to say out loud, but it's so true that in order for the company to have the correct structure, that middle manager at a distribution facility in Amazon can't stroll into Bezos's office and say like, hey, I got a problem with the way this is being done. Undermines the whole thing. So my goal isn't to build Amazon. I'm not interested in that. But what I am interested in is letting people buy into the culture and the idea that they need to follow a logical process to resolve issues, because issues always come up. And it makes it difficult. If they have an issue with the person above them, it makes it even harder. Doesn't matter. You got to train your people. Go have that uncomfortable conversation. Go ask to build the shelf from the person who you know is going to say no. Just because you know they're going to say no doesn't mean you're going to go to me and who's likely to be like, yeah, I think that's a great idea. And then all they're going to hear is, yep, owner said yep. I'm telling you, it's bad. Last mistake, the seventh mistake, one of the biggest ones I've made over the last 7 years is another spectrum issue, being too trusting of people versus not putting in proper checks and balances. So this mostly came up with how we dealt with vendors or outsourced professionals to help us, whether that's like accounting or legal or whatever. I'm very hands off, just like I said like a couple issues ago. Like I'm on the spectrum of like autonomy. I'm way over here. I have personality assessments that document and quantify just how on that level I am. I'm very hands off. Very hands off. It's in my biological nature to be hands off. So when I hired, whether it's I'm going to be very vague, a legal company or an accounting company or some sort of professional to help, or a consultant now, whatever that looks like I just expect that those people are professionals and I'm going to trust that what you deliver me is the right thing. What I have learned is, and this is true not just in business, but even personally, like with medical systems and doctors, just because someone has the title of doctor, accountant, lawyer, don't just presume that those people know how to do everything correctly, or worse yet, that they have your best interests at heart. Sometimes they don't. So I would look at someone's title and be like, you are a doctor, lawyer, CPA, accountant. Therefore, you are a professional. Therefore, I can trust you to run this entire function of my business and I don't have to worry about it. Big mistake. Don't do that. Don't do that ever. It is entirely acceptable and appropriate for you to put in some sort of check and balance. And I don't know, that could be anything, dude. That could be like weekly check-ins. That could be like asking them to show their work. It doesn't matter. The point is, a real professional, doesn't matter who it is, will tell you why they came to the conclusion they came to and why they're giving you that information. An unprofessional professional, so someone who you can't trust, would be like, I don't have people ever question my work. I'm a professional doctor, lawyer, accountant, whatever. this is what I do. What do you mean you want to know more details? What could you possibly want to know? And you think that sounds outrageous? It happened to me. And that's as specific as I'm going to get. Like, it was awful. I thought someone was in charge of a thing. And so I let them do the thing, thinking everything was going to be hunky-dory, because in my mind, me letting go of this thing and letting someone else do it completely and me not having to worry about it equals now I have more time to sell stuff, basically, grow the company, right? Business development. That's what I want to focus on. I don't want to focus on the nuts and the bolts and the day-to-day and the accounting and the legal. I don't want to worry about that. Bro, I want to run the company. I want to grow the business. And I got burned bad. Bad. So I think this is true for a vendor. You know, don't be like untrusting of your vendors. Don't like be skeptical. Don't in your first meeting be like, you got to prove to me why you're worth it. But you can also, like, you know, protect yourself and your company at the same time, as opposed to what I did. It was on that spectrum of just being like, wow, I'm paying you all this money and you're a professional, so now you got it. Wowzer, did that ever not work out? So I know I've had a couple conversations. I can't think of any specific one right now where basically this has happened to someone who is like, you know, I think I'm getting taken for a ride by this professional, my ads expert or my website guy or whatever. It could be any sort of thing. And it's entirely okay to put in those checks and balances to make sure that you're not getting taken for a ride. Because I did, and it sucked. I probably could have come up with 15 mistakes I've made over the last 7 years, but I just decided on 7. So if you want any more information on like the gory details of those mistakes, because it applies to you, if you're like, dude, I'm really struggling with that. Like, I don't know how to document the process, or like, I feel like we're just selling our way out of problems and chasing revenue to put a check in the bank so I can make payroll every 2 weeks. If that's you, just reach out to me, man. I'll see if I can help you in any sort of way. That's why we do what we do on this show and the Skool community and my one-on-one program. I want businesses to grow, man. And I'm right in the fight with you every day. So keep on, make as few mistakes as possible. And I'll talk to you next week.
What's up, guys? This episode of the show today is brought to you by our good friends at One Crew. So if you run a pavement maintenance business, asphalt paving, line striping, one of the biggest things that has helped me grow my business from literally working out of a minivan to like 7 figures of revenue was understanding the costs that we were putting into our jobs and speeding up the process of how quick we can serve customers. What I learned in business is that it takes a lot of time to make an estimate. It takes a lot of time to get your pricing. And then you're going to hear like people like me on this podcast or other successful business people talk about job costing and know your numbers. And if you're a business owner, like, you just don't have time for that. Like, you know it's important, but you don't have the time. That's why we use One Crew. And I'm so happy that they sponsored this show. One Crew simplifies that. They make everything easy. So from the moment a lead comes in, to how you estimate it, to getting the proposal to your customer, and then converting that to a work order. One Crew has simplified the whole thing. It cut our time on a sales cycle by 70% in my company. The cost savings of that alone is insane. So if that interests you and you want to know more, like, they give free demos. So here's what you're going to do. Go to getonecrew.com/stripe-it. getonecrew.com/stripe-it. You just need to plunk in your info, and then their team will reach out to you to set up a demo. It's totally free. I guarantee you're going to be blown away with the stuff you see. Now, if you go to that link, they will also give you, if you sign up with the program, $500 off your startup fee, which is pretty awesome. Pretty big savings. So getonecrew.com/stripe-it. Take the free demo. They're not going to pressure you. It's a great software. I really think you need to see it to understand what it could do for your company, like it's what it's done for my company.